Hey everybody, welcome to Get Your Meat. I've been getting some guys asking how do I bone out an animal in the backcountry. There's several different ways that you can do it. Being in a meat shop, I know how butchers like it, and today that's what I'm actually going to show you. I'm going to show you the front shoulder, and then there'll be a second part to this, how to do the hind quarter to maximize your meat quality and keep your butcher happy. We get a lot of customers in here that bring us what we like to call meat puzzles. They want to break it down as far as they can possibly do for whatever reason. It's not necessary, by the way. The big thing is you just want to get that bone out. So that's what we're going to show you. On the front shoulder, unfortunately, we cannot keep this in one piece. So I'm going to kind of show you the way that we would do it in a meat shop if we have a solid front shoulder here. So this is the back side of the scapula, the inside of the scapula here. So we would actually take a knife. There's a joint right here, which you guys are going to see a little bit later, because I'm going to take this thing completely apart. But there's a joint right here. If you take and just run your knife right to the back side of this, there's a seam that follows this, and it's real important that we get down to that seam. Then we get our knife down. Now, in the backcountry, obviously you're probably not hanging this from a tree. Maybe you are. I'm going to take this thing down and stick it on the table so like it is in the backcountry. But for this thing, it really doesn't matter. This is going straight into burger anyways. But you can see that I run my knife real tight to the backside of the scapula blade. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm actually trying to separate my different muscle groups. This little flap right here, like I said, is going to go straight into burger. So it's not very crucial. But we'll get that down in there. We'll flip her over to this side. You might have to move over this way to this side of me. We'll get over to this side. We want to stay right on along that scapula here. Get that down. Give it a tug. Inside of the scapula is done. Okay? This little flap right here can be a nightmare if you leave this intact. This thing will actually joins both sides. So we want to get rid of this guy. Now let's move this thing over the table. So like we were in the backcountry here, okay? So this is the top side. We removed the little back piece on that scapula. Now we want to work with the front side of the scapula. So if you look right here, you can see this white line comes down. This is the top of the scapula blade. This being a flat iron, this being a mock tender, this being a shoulder roast, which I'm going to go over here in just a second. But what we want to do is we actually want to go both sides of this little cap right here on the top side of the scapula, the blade. So we'll start at the top, work our knife in there, keeping it tight as we can, and pulling with our other fingers. Get that guy down. Then we'll take our knife back up. And you're going to find a little knuckle right here. And then there's a tendon. So you got to kind of shove your knife down into that tendon. Pop that tendon. As soon as that tendon's popped, stop. Then we're going to go to the other side. Same thing. We're going to keep our knife. You can see how I have my knife. I've got it kind of at a 20-degree angle, 25-degree angle. And that's so I'm staying real tight to this bone right here. And I'm going all the way to the scapula blade. And then it's going to fall off. And I take my knife and I almost run it straight back at my other hand. I do have a cut glove on. That does help, but you're probably not going to have a cut glove in the backcountry. So when you do that, just kind of back your thumb up. And you can see that I'm actually pressing with my thumb. And that's just so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to run my knife right along the top of that scapula. Cut that little slack off of there. So on this side, this little portion right here, it's almost a triangle cut. But this is a shoulder roast. Now this can actually be a very good roast to make. You can get a little bit of chuck out of it. Doesn't really have a fat content to it. So if you do it like a chuck steak or something like that, just know it's not like a normal beef chuck steak. It's going to cook fast because it doesn't have a fat content. But right here, it does have that knuckle. So we're going to go straight down, and we're going to go back in. See how that knuckle kind of folds over? This is what we want. Then you can see this white line right here. So we're going to go straight down, and we're going to find that bone. Then you're going to follow that bone as much as you can. See how that bone kind of opened up here. We'll get this little back piece trimmed off of there. Then we're going to take it back on this side. We're going to hold our knives to where we have control. This is control. This is not control for this cut. This is going to make bloody fingers and not the blood you want to see. So this way we have control. So we're going to get around that little bit of a knuckle here that I was talking about. We'll get in. If you want to come in here, Corey, kind of see. So this is that knuckle that I was talking about. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this removed. You can hear my knife kind of scratching against there. That's actually what we want. This means now we are maximizing everything we can possibly get out of this. The whole idea with butchering your deer, your elk, your whatever, is to get the most amount of meat you can possibly get off it. And by doing that, that's called having clean bones. In a butcher shop, we would use a hook, but you're probably not going to have a hook in the backcountry, so I'm going to do it all by hand to show you that it can be done. So we're going to get this little bit of cartilage removed here. Get it to where we have a good grip on something. We're going to take it with whichever dominant hand you have. I'm right-handed. That's why you see my knife in my right hand and my leverage in my left hand. But we're going to take this thing, we're going to fold this thing back, give it a tear. See how clean that comes off? No knife work. You only use a knife just to get it started. Or if you get a hang up on your meat. That's the only time you ever want to use your knife. Everything else can be pulled by hand. That's why you'll never beat a butcher in an arm wrestling match. So, where it hangs up right here, take your knife almost flat. Get that last little bit. You can see this guy's actually got like kind of a broken scapula right here. Separated scapula. So we'll go ahead and just kind of get that off there. Bam. Now you have everything you want off the front except for the mock tender. We'll do that here in a second. But so here's your shoulder roast, and then you have your flat iron off of this side. This particular animal will just barely get a flat iron off it. A deer, unfortunately, will not, so it will go into grind. But FYI, front shoulder on an animal is where the good stuff comes from. On the hindquarters, generally just round. Even though it's bigger, it's just round steak. It's going to cook really fast. There's no fat content in it. And if you go to the store to buy a steak, round steak is usually pretty discounted down because nobody wants it. Why? It has no fat content, has no flavor, and it dries out. So front shoulder is where all your real good cuts of steak come from. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove this mock tender. So you can see I only cut up to the top here. So what I'm actually going to do, because there is still this knuckle that we can see, is I'm going to run my knife in here. I'm going to hit that knuckle, massage this down, and you can see that it starts to kind of open up. I can poke my finger all the way through that. That's where we want to go all the way in with our knife. And we're going to cut it right off that knuckle. Okay? Then, again, pull it. Oh, it's got a break right there. Go flat. Mock tender. Now the other side, this side here, So your shank muscle makes great ossobuco, makes great shank if you're going to braise it, if you're going to slow cook it. A lot of people aren't going to do that. They're going to turn it right into hamburger. So we'll start right at this top side on this knuckle. We'll get this kind of peeled back. We want to stay as tight as we can to that bone. Get that kind of peeled away out of there. And you can see that there's a little piece right here that always holds back. But, hey, I'm tired of dealing with that. So, we're going to just cut this bone completely away. So, right here, you can see that it actually moves, and then there's a solid ball. So, we're going to take our knife, following with our knife, and we're just going to cut that thing out of there. Then we're going to take this, we'll clean it all up for burger meat and stuff like that, and you can throw that in your game bag. This side, we're going to continue on. So we'll get this to where it loosens up, always following how the bone breaks down. You can see this side is kind of a flat piece, and so it's going to have an end to it. End meaning it's going to finally just petal out, and that's what you're going to get. On the round side, and come up here, get that off that bone right there. Get it off of this side. Following that bone. Don't worry about trying to cut these little chunks of meat. You can, but you're just wasting your time. So right now, all I'm doing is I work that entire piece of meat right around that bone. So continuing along that bone. And then on the same side, instead of chasing this, I'm actually going to come off this side. Take this side. Freddy Krueger, or what is that, Jason, or whatever. Cut that cartilage. There's a lot of cartilage down here in these shanks. So we want to minimize our knife going dull by just kind of working as much as we can around that bone. And once you get it to a certain point, you come across this top here, get it to where it'll pull. Pull. Oh, that's so attached. Pull. Done. This is what a butcher wants. A butcher can make all kinds of things with this. If you give it to him broken up and in pieces, you're going to get hamburger back out of it. There's not a lot we can do with this. But thank you for watching.